Hey everybody, this is Rex Bear with Leak Project. I hope you're having a nice day wherever you're at. And this presentation, we actually had Nancy Leader with us. She came on via Skype. We did a video presentation, and after about the 25-minute mark, the audio started getting so ear-piercing bad that we had to reconnect. And when we got back to the interview, it was done via landline. And then we got disconnected on our landline 2 different times. So this first part I'm going to share with you guys is just the video section of the interview, and she breaks down a ton of information. Now, when we were doing the phone call interview, when she would start getting into some pretty heated topics, I guess you could say, the phone would either disconnect or the sound would just completely go away. There was just no sound there. It was very interesting. So I don't know what it was, but you guys, I tried to edit most of it out for the show. But in this 25-minute presentation here, this video presentation, Nancy breaks down coordinates. She talks about astronomers that discovered this Planet X back in the 1983 time frame. So this is quite incredible. And also I want to recommend you guys, if you like the shows and if you don't like the commercials, go to leakproject.com. Within the next 24 hours, we're going to have every single podcast available commercial-free. There's going to be a link on each page of each podcast, and you can either listen to that specific podcast commercial-free, or you can have access to all the podcasts, and it's pretty cool. So check it out, leakproject.com. Hope you're having a nice day, and we'll talk to you soon. Excellent. Well, I'm honored to speak with you. I've heard about you for years. It's great to finally get a chance to speak with the famous Nancy Leader. This is cool from Zeta Talk. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, I'm the real deal because in 1995 we came out talking. I am told by BBC and other, I think it's Wikipedia credits me with that too. First relating Planet X, which was found in 1983, or there was something out there that they infrared. With NIBIRU and saying they're one and the same. So it built on that. But basically, the big deal is that the Zetas, my friends, the Zetas, gave the coordinates in the sky, XY positions in the sky, where to look out near Orion at various dates. They were very specific. I mean, they went umpteen past the decimal place. And we had teams on 3 different continents. We had in the U.S., and in France, and in Africa that went looking at those coordinates and found this inbound object moving according to the Zeta coordinates. And that's the path diagram, which I have on my website, and I also sent to you. It is they pinpointed where the 1983 infrared balloon found an object, and it hit the Washington Post front page. And it just as a side note, when they came out with this Planet 9 announcement in January, guess where they were saying that Planet 9 folks were looking? Exactly where the Zetas pinpointed in 1997 when I put that path diagram up. That's how accurate these Zetas are. They're the real deal. Okay, so then they said, and then it swung up toward the ecliptic, and then it got into a retrograde motion, and then it dropped down below the ecliptic to avoid the crowded particle flows, yada, yada. And these 3 teams went out in the winter of 2001, because Orion is only visible in the winter months from the northern hemisphere. They went out and went to observatories in Vancouver, in the U.S., and France. A French astronomer found it, but he was not allowed to release his images to us. The observatory said, no, there's a cover-up going on. We'd have to kill you, So he wasn't allowed to give us the images. That's the way. And also in Zaire, in South Africa. So they found it where the Zetas said it would be. Then in going into the winter of 2002, we were using infrared. A France student in France got a hold of infrared equipment. The people there didn't know what he was doing. He was just a student. Well, he was looking at our coordinates and made images and slipped them all to us. Then again, we went over to I believe it was CCD images, in out of Arizona, and there
Okay.
was an infrared in from a skeptic astronomer in Florida who put it up on SciAstro Amateur Usenet and said, "Okay, Nancy, where is it?" And we fingered it. The Zetas had me finger where it should be, and people looked closely, and sure enough, it was a dim star that wasn't on the star charts. So we got infrared in France and Florida. Then we moved to CCD imaging in the winter of 2002 to 2003,
Mm-hmm.
Arizona. And we had teams that went in every 2 weeks, paid their own money down, rented a scope near Flagstaff, and uh, we found it to be moving in accordance with the Zeta coordinates. Basically, in 2 weeks, it had moved from where it was before, and where it was before, there was no dim star. And then it became visible around late March 2003. I myself saw it in the sky, in the night sky around 8:30, and then it moved across the Earth's orbit such that it was within. Then you had to have light pollution from the sun to see it. All that's on my website. I did a video of my own. If you look at my YouTube channel, you'll find that about what I just described to you with pictures. It's very well documented in many places in my website.
Great. Yeah, now zetatalk.com is a nice website. I was just looking at your YouTube channel. You've got some great videos on there as well. I went to the McDonald Observatory recently here in Texas, and I tried to get the inside scoop. I wasn't able to get much out there. I did talk to one of the liaisons that works at the gift shop / welcome center, and I talked to him a little bit about Planet X. One thing that was really cool about that observatory is it's in a no-fly zone, so there's no chemtrails or contrails over it, and you look at the sun, and it looks completely different there than when you go to a place like Phoenix, Arizona, or Las Vegas from all the chemtrails that they blast into the skies. So, and it's funny, Nancy, because I am really open to the possibility of Planet X, but I'm also agnostic. I don't know. I'm neutral, but if I had to go one way or another, I'd say there's certainly a lot of things that point to the possibility of Planet X, but I'd say there's always been a lot of things. People say that volcanoes are going off now more than ever, and Earth changes and stuff, and that's been going on for a lot of years. So that could be it, or maybe it's something else. I don't know, but it certainly is nice to talk with people like you and others that have done so much research into the subject. And with all this information that's coming out there, I could definitely see the possibilities. I haven't seen it with my own two eyes, and even if I did, with all the Project Bluebeam stuff and everything else that's going on, it's tough to have those filters and know what's right and what's wrong and what's real and what isn't. So it's really nice to speak with you. Now, I guess our interview's here in about 45 minutes, but I would like to ask you personally. What's it like when the Zetas contact you? Is it just like you talking to me? Is it telepathic?
Yeah, it's just like me talking to you. Although I don't hear anything, I don't hear any noises. I don't hear a voice. I don't see anything. The best I can describe it is like if you daydream or you have an idea pop into your head. You might be dozing off and you say, "Oh, wait a minute, blah, 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 blah." An idea pops into your head. Well, I know it's not my thoughts that I'm getting. And we worked on this. They opened my head up and put a little bit of their DNA in my head where the telepathy center for people is. And this happened in my late 20s. And I do recall the instance. They had me walk out into the backyard, and get on a little spaceship and go through this routine. Then they wanted to know, did I feel nauseous? How were my arms and legs? And, okay, no brain damage and back home with the babies. And after that, I became...
We're just going to put some DNA in your cerebral cortex. No big deal. Have a nice day. Carry on. Sorry.
I think they zapped it in there, to some degree. But they had my head in a clamp to make sure they got it just the right spot. They didn't want... So after that, I noticed that I was more telepathic with people. And I would know who was calling before the phone rang. Right. And I would be able... And I played with that. I was fascinated. I wasn't even consciously aware that I was a contactee at that time. I wasn't consciously aware until 55 years of age. I did not let myself know I was a contactee so that I could live a normal life and people wouldn't be able to say, well, she's always been crazy.
Right.
Because I haven't been. So at that time, I didn't know, but I was aware, and I played games with people. I would say, think of something I couldn't possibly know, and then within 2 minutes, I'd guess it.
Wow.
And I found that I could actually go out with a different thought complexes and invade people's thinking doing remote viewing. I didn't know at that time what it was, but okay, I would think of a situation, a map, an emotion, a date, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows about this? And then it'd be bing, I'd be connecting with somebody. I'd be on the same wavelength because these are brainwave wavelengths. Yeah. And I would be able to interrogate them. And sometimes these people would know they were being probed. One time I got, who is this? So wow. Remote viewing is real. If you have telepathic ability, you can do it. It's a great snoop tool. So when I talk to the Zetas, it's just, it is conversational, but I don't hear anything in response. I get a realization.
Okay.
And then when I do Zeta talk, I wrap English around my realization or my concepts that they've given me, the concepts. If I were French, I would wrap French around it. So it's not a language. Language is the last thing we add to our thoughts before we emit it to other people.
Yeah, right. Huh. Well, that's fascinating. Okay. Do you have Rh negative blood?
No, I'm not a Neanderthal. No.
Okay.
Not at all. I'm German. My whole, at least as far as we know, just a smidgen of Jewish, maybe a little French, but
sure.
Mostly German.
I know several people that are lifetime contactees that, multiple experiences with what they call the Greys. They don't call them Zetas. And they have Rh negative blood. And they have like that extra tailbone, some real weird anomalies with that blood type versus the non-Rh negative. So I have seen a lot of images lately of Planet X, and some of them have been incredible, and other ones have been, they look like just, straight up lens flare to me. So I recently came out with a video where somebody wanted to come on the show, and he wanted to debunk most of the Planet X video, or, pictures. And the ones that he brought to the table, they weren't the best pictures, but he certainly was able to debunk them. And now, it's funny, Nancy, because I think that Planet X and NIBIRU, people that are looking for the wrong things oftentimes are putting all this energy and focus into stuff that isn't real. And I brought that to the table, and now a lot of people that I guess are just so passionate about lens flare anomalies being Planet X are looking at me like I'm a disinformation agent. I was called a government donkey, a federal donkey, and several other things from people, which I'm just like, wow, you guys, I'm a reporter. I'm trying to get to the truth. I'm bringing both sides to the table. And I've interviewed many people like Gil Broussard, Marshall Masters, and others that have specialized in Planet X. And I've talked to people like, what was his name? Not Marshall Clarfield. I spoke with him as well. I spoke with a gentleman that basically tried to debunk Planet X. And so, I mean, I talked to both sides here. And as I said, I'm agnostic on the subject. But it certainly seems to me that there's a lot of evidence that points to the possibility of Planet X. When you read some of these ancient articles and texts like the Sumerian tablets and such, does the Zeta talk, does that parallel with the Sumerian tablets and many of the translations of Zachariah Sitchin and maybe Gerald Clark?
Yes and no. They don't stand behind what Sitchin has translated, but they said the ancient Sumerians were talking about NIBIRU. That is the planet, and of course it shows up in Plato's work. That all kinds of the Aborigines, the people all over the world have talked about the Great Flood. The Chinese mythology is full of talks about prior crustal shifts and the like. Hapgood talking to Einstein with the crustal shifting theory. Velikovsky coming out mapping the 3600 signature, I like to call it that. And there's so much evidence that every 3600 years we have cataclysmic changes on Earth. We have Velikovsky mapped how the oceans drop 16 to 20 feet worldwide, 35 or now it's 3,600 years ago. And what about the mammoths, found up there in Wrangel Island, where it's just frozen solid all the time, and that they have green grass in their tummies and buttercups? They were suddenly frozen or drowned and then frozen. But the point is, green grass doesn't grow up there, and these are gigantic herbivores. So you could go on and on about the geological proof that every 3,600 years we have something cataclysmic happen. There's a huge cover-up going on. Why is that the case? Well, the Zetas have said that in 1983, when the JPL and NASA sent up the infrared balloon up above the atmosphere to get a clear view, and they looked in the direction of Orion because they were getting this information from aliens after Roswell, chatting with them. And they said that's where the direction it's coming from. So up went the balloon, and everybody, but prior to that, 1980 on, there was lots of articles in magazines saying, we're looking for Nemesis. A tug out in that direction. There's a gravity pull. The outer planets perturb in that direction. Even all the ancient astronomers knew that and were documenting. We're going to go see what that is. Well, okay, it was fine as long as they didn't find it. But in 1983, when they found it, they were so shocked that the cover-up didn't clamp down fast enough, and it hit the Washington Post December 31st at the bottom of the front page, mystery planet, blah, blah, blah. Maybe so close it's part of our solar system, maybe very distant and huge, and And then they said, but we can say for sure it's not inbound. Well, if you don't know what it is, you can't say for sure. So then, whammo, here comes the cover-up. And the cover-up was, oh, never mind. There's no perturbations out there. And it's all nonsense. We did a math error. It was a math error. Well, bull crap, So anyway, why did they do the cover-up? Reagan issued an executive order saying, don't talk about this object and don't talk about aliens either. So that was and therefore, they had it was a national security issue. People were going to panic. They were going to run screaming in the streets. You were going to refuse to go to your jobs. You weren't going to pay your mortgage. All these horrible things. More people would die if they knew. Well, they knew, and they weren't screaming in the streets, but they're special and we're not, we're dummies. So now we have a gradual announcement happening. There's been a struggle about those who wanted to tell us the truth. Obama reversed those executive orders, but everybody was still terrified. Anybody that wanted to talk about it would get assassinated or have accidents. So Obama struggled since the middle of 2012, according to the Zetas, to tell us about Reagan's executive orders, and now reversed. And it's here, it's arrived. Never did get there. So now we have what the Zetas call prongs, multi-pronged approach. Planet 9, it's out there where they found this big planet in 1983, this object. Exactly. Even the Zetas, when they gave their path of where people should look for it inbound, pinpointed the lower part of Orion's bow as where the IRS team found it. And son of a gun, that's where they're saying that they found Planet 9. Well, then we get into all these exoplanets. And oh, wait, Wise and Kepler and the Hubble, they're looking way too far out there. And it's probably right under our feet, and we didn't notice it. Guess what? The ESO observatory in Chile has found all kinds of exoplanets closer in since 2010 that Wise and Hubble and Kepler did not find. Oh, okay. And so we've got all these people searching, the skies, and look. Now they've started to look at the Dark Energy Survey, which is an infrared survey of the skies. We'll go back a few years and look and see if there's exoplanets that are moving around. Well, I kind of predict that by the end of the summer, we're going to have a basic admission that NIBIRU arrived, that arrived when the Zeta said, where they said, and it's parked there next to the sun, outbound now toward Earth. And that's where we're going. and people are not running in the streets, refusing to pay their bank accounts or mortgages, quitting their jobs. So we're getting there. I'll let you get a word in edgewise.
What do you mean by it's parked next to the sun? I mean, is it actually parked there, or can they move it around at will? Is this some type 2 civilization?
No, it's not intelligently controlled. It is a planet that is 4 to 5 times our diameter, the diameter of Earth, 23 times as massive. And it's a big magnet. It has a different composition than Earth. It's called a planet, but it actually has its own glow. It's more of a water planet than not, although it has land masses. The Anunnaki live there, and they were transplanted to live there. They are human equivalents, more like 8 foot tall rather than 5-6 foot tall, and it emits its own light through cracks under the ocean, so that the light bounces off the clouds around it. And so they don't really need to be close to a sun to have light and warmth. But it's a type of planetary object that mankind does not have a definition for. And if you think you come under ridicule, Rex, you should see the ridicule I came under in 1995. I went on Sci-Astro Amateur in 1997 to 2001 and debated the astronomers, and who boy, they don't have enough dirty names for me.
Isn't it amazing how some people, whether they're right or wrong, are not willing to have a decent conversation? Now, debate can be a good thing, right? I mean, we can learn from each other oftentimes, but because you have a certain position and you've gone to school for something, well, if this person says it's true and I don't believe in it because I wasn't taught about it in school, well, I'm going to call that person it's retarded the way that human beings respond to each other sometimes. It just blows my mind. We're in the year 2016, and we still treat each other like cavemen and barbarians sometimes, I mean, not everybody. A lot of people that listen to your show, Zeta Talk, and a lot of people that listen to Leak Project are very open-minded and astute, well-educated, and looking for the truth. They're not confined in a little tiny box.
It comes with the territory, as they say, and this is war. And I would have to say the fan and hate mail was 50-50 in those days. And it's really, the nature of it has changed, in part because people are admitting that NIBIRU is there. And the visibility, it's really there. We have a webcam in Italy and another in France that are showing NIBIRU at sundown at approximately the 4 o'clock position of the sun. There it is, the pink orb with its shoulder pads. When it came in 2003, we had people all around the world that were looking for it, and it was in the night sky, close enough they could take photos, and then it crossed over our orbit to be closer to the sun in the spring of 2003. And I saw it. It was kind of like a glowing red mess that kind of faded in and out. And this was not Aldebaran, the reddish star to the east of Orion at all, because I could see that too. And people all over the world, and people would take photos of it. We had people with a 10x binocular cameras and the like, and they showed like a double helix streaming behind Nibiru, because it's a moving planet. It just doesn't sit and park and have its moons go round and around. It's constantly in motion, and therefore that pattern developed. Well, it's got 2 dominant moons, and they each have their own collage of little moons, and they're on either side like shoulder pads, and this whole thing swirls in a retrograde motion. It has a retrograde orbit coming in. It has a retrograde rotation, in relationship to the sun. And the moon swirls also go in a retrograde swirl. So when you look straight on, it looks like it's got shoulder pads. And we have that in photos from 2003. I sent a couple to you, Rex. So also now in this webcam from Italy, and when it's become visible, there it is with the shoulder pads. In France, another webcam off South Carolina, and recently one up in Alaska. I think it's Sedgwick, Alaska. There's a cam set up for pilots of small planes, and it looks almost dead north. azimuth 344. So it's looking up over the North Pole. Well, at midnight to 2 a.m., the sun comes up and then sets at 2 a.m. And then, of course, it comes up again in the morning, but that's not the sunrise.
Former NASA scientist reveals 2017 pole shift dates. It has been scientifically proven that the Earth undergoes a full geomagnetic reversal, or pole shift, around every 780,000 years. These reversals are usually slow, occurring gradually over long spans of time. However, at the start of the 20th century that historical pattern appears to have been radically altered. All the nations that track this easily monitored data have validated each other's scientific observations and data sets. Even NOAA has presented hard data which substantiates this ongoing geomagnetic shift. Hence, there is no mistaking the now generally accepted fact that the magnetic poles of the Earth are not only shifting in real time, but that they are moving very quickly. This phenomenon applies to both the North and the South poles. The following diagram shows the precise movements as they are transpiring at the respective poles. Former NASA scientist Dr. Salvatore Conti delineates the coming geomagnetic pole shift. The following video is quite remarkable for many reasons. It represents the first time that an authoritative account of the coming magnetic pole shift has been provided by a scientist who has been given access to highly privileged information and impressive data collection. In fact, the only way that former NASA scientist Dr. Salvatore Conti could have elaborated such complex information was by having been the insider that he was. The following video is less than 1/2 hour long, but only a few minutes of viewing will be necessary to receive the most relevant details. Those revelations begin at the 13-minute mark and continue until about the 19-minute mark. Partial transcription. 1428. Our ET friends have given us a very ominous prediction. In a nutshell, our planet is going to go through a process we call a chill magnetic reversal, but a rare kind that happens very quickly, and its most intense drifting will take place between September 25 and October 19, 2017. Now, a chill magnetic reversal does not mean the planet is going to flip over, and everything is going to shift and shake violently in apocalyptic devastation. The planet has actually gone through a geomagnetic reversals many times. Most of these happen very slowly over many years. But we are certain that they do happen every few 100,000 years by looking at fossil records, which show changes in the magnetic orientation of rocks. So what are geomagnetic reversals? Put as simply as possible, our planet's core is made of a giant, superheated solid metal ball covered with liquid metal. As both move and flow inside our planet, and the Earth turns, this combination creates the dynamo effect, which in turn creates the magnetic field around the planet. In a geomagnetic reversal, changes at the core make the magnetic field unstable at first and then cause it to drift, and to finally re-establish itself with the poles in opposite positions from where they were when the reversal started. Now, the continents and oceans are still going to be where they are right now. It's the invisible magnetic field that's going to flip. By the way, let me make something clear here. Like I said before, this is not a movie. I once saw a movie in which the core stops flowing, so they have to do ridiculously unbelievable things to get it started again, or else the magnetic field would disappear and the Earth would get fried by microwave radiation from the solar wind. As clear as that may sound, it's nonsense. What the 1642 Alphys are warning us about is unfortunately real science. 1645. Now, when the last reversal took place, which was about 780,000 years ago, there were already some early ancestors of ours, and anthropologists haven't found evidence that it caused any major alterations on those early humans. But that last reversal was, like most are, very slow over many years. The reversal, Alphys say is about to happen is a kind that is very fast. For all we know, the process may have started already and we may be witnessing events which are related to the 2017 event. Like all these weather changes, and seismological activity, the magnetic North Pole is migrating fast toward northern Russia. 1729. The fact is that the rate of polar migration for this next reversal will increase exponentially to a peak during the summer of 2017 when, according to the Alphys, in a period of 66 days it will amount to 124.72 degrees. That's almost 70% of the total reversal in a little more than 2 months, something that usually takes hundreds to thousands of years. This event will be like one that's been proven from analysis of the lava salts on Steens Mountain in Oregon. 15 million years ago a reversal took place in which the rate of change was as fast as 6 degrees per day. That's over 3 times faster than the average drift of less than 2 degrees per day, expected for September through October 2017. But this rate of change is fixed for the 66 days. The days in the middle of the period should be the ones with the fastest change. 1835. And here's the rub. What the Alphys are determining and making us know is that in 2017 the quick change in polarity will make the Van Allen radiation belt to drop to Earth. What does that mean? Well, the Van Allen belt is actually made up of 2 enormous clouds of highly charged particles that exist around our planet, and which are held in our planet's magnetosphere by the magnetic field. When the magnetic field becomes unstable due to the quick flip of its poles, the Van Allen belt will collapse and its particles will pretty much bombard the Earth with a lot of radiation. Based on what our alien friends say and from all calculations, the amount of radiation that will reach the surface will be devastating. Most land-based plant and animals, and those living near the surface of the sea, will be killed, including an expected 75 to 80% human mortality rate. Those who do survive will be affected in ways we can only theorize, not just physically, but physiologically and genetically. There is no question that the Earth's magnetic poles are moving more rapidly than they have been observed at any point in human history. Given the significant uptick in Earth movements, particularly volcanic eruptions, major earthquakes, methane releases and massive sinkholes, as well as the intensification of global climate change, the evidence is now quite compelling that there are other sources of Earth changes: intensification of solar activity, influx of cosmic rays, alteration in the movement, temperature of the Earth's core, etc. There is no stopping the ongoing geomagnetic pole shift, nor is there any slowing it down. The only remaining questions are: when will it reach peak intensity, and how will such a drastic movement in degrees affect the magnetosphere? The magnetosphere is well known for providing a blanket of protection around the Earth, without which the planet would be practically uninhabitable. Most importantly, it must be determined whether there is any truth to Dr. Conti's assertions about the potential collapse of the Van Allen belt, full or partial, and what that would mean for the biosphere and for humanity.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed an executive order instructing the Russian Space Agency to immediately begin construction on a NIBIRU observatory. A pair of memos, obtained via our Moscow source, highlight Putin's courageous endeavor to unmask a global conspiracy that has plagued humankind. If all information is accurate, Putin has committed 860 million dinars, deferred from Russia's national defense budget, toward the construction of the observatory and its 46 inches opto-radio infrared parallax telescope. Revolutionary optics should permit unobstructed viewing and tracking of the NIBIRU system as it swings around the dark side of the Sun and begins its deadly approach toward Earth. Although construction of the observatory will take place on Mount Zamoro, chosen for its altitude and clear view of the southern skies, the telescope itself will be prefabricated in Potsdam, DDR and, once completed, flown to North Ossetia. The telescope incorporates a security feature, an integrated retinal scan preventing unauthorized users from accessing the cutting-edge optics. Unapproved users will see images of the Moon or another benign celestial object, anything but NIBIRU. Putin finalized his bold plan, sources say, after speaking with President Trump, with whom he has forged an uneasy détente regarding all aspects of the NIBIRU cover-up. Both world leaders have repeatedly asserted a desire to terminate the NIBIRU conspiracy. Critics of Putin's agenda, however, question the allocation of funds and the unusual timing. Russian opposition leader Yevgenia Chirkova was quoted as saying, "Why now? This NIBIRU thing is supposed to arrive later this year, before the observatory is completed, most likely. What good would it do then? A blatant waste of money. If Putin wants the telescope, he should fund it himself. Besides, this NIBIRU was supposed to show up in 2000, 2003, 2006, 2008, and 2012, and nothing." Mikhail Khodorkovsky, a vocal critic of Putin, echoed Chirkova's sentiments. "Putin is up to something," Khodorkovsky said. "He is very sneaky, like a weasel. He wastes money needed to combat Western expansionism on foolish projects. This will be his undoing." But Vladimir Putin, arguably the second most powerful man in the world, answers to his own authority. His steely gaze and unwavering calm are enough to silence most critics. In fact, the operation may already be underway. Eyewitnesses from Mozdok reported seeing military helicopters airlifting steel girders, construction equipment and machinery to the summit of Mount Zamara. A chain of pack mules was spotted lugging less burdensome equipment up a treacherous path leading to the mountaintop. Putin's risky venture suggests one of two possibilities: he is either intentionally bankrupting his own economy or he is privy to inside information indicating that the NIBIRU apocalypse might not transpire in 2017.